New Zealand and England. Let's kind of have a look at the results of the series. So before that, the first T20, of course, England chasing and winning by 7 wickets before a better margin for when it comes to New Zealand, a 6 wicket loss before the final T20 that ended with New Zealand falling short by 32 runs. Nothing much to write home about for New Zealand, but a plenty to talk here for us on the Outside View Live. First up, let's begin with New Zealand's batting. Ananya, they seem to be pretty confused with their batting order, the personnel as to where they should play, whom they should play, where they should bat. That was something that it seemed as if they didn't come to a solution to that.
Well, actually, I think it's strange that you say that, because New Zealand clearly had some clarity with their batting order, because they sent the same people at the same positions. It's just the people who were watching who were very confused as to what they were up to, because to see Hayley Jensen, yes, she got a 50 in that first ODI, continue to open through that series, but logic suggested that they would push her down the order and maybe send up someone like Maddie Green to open in the T20s at least. But of course, that didn't happen, and Jensen continued at the top of the order. So yeah, I think people who were watching were more confused than New Zealand themselves, because they clearly knew what they were doing. But yeah, it was just, I think the order was just very, very strange. I didn't understand it at all. The capability of someone like Maddie Green batting at number 7, you had Kate Abraham coming in at number 8, or even Tamsin Newton, who played the first T20, coming in at number 8. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, when you look at that lineup, there is so much potential, there is so much power in it, but they clearly aren't getting the best out of their players, because again, they're all batting out of position. We saw how successful Brooke Halliday was through that ODI series. She opens for Northern Spirit in the domestic competition. So they had a lot of options as openers, and they could have. I don't understand why they stuck with Jensen, because she looked a very limited player, especially against the quality of Brandt, Siver, Davies. She just couldn't get the ball away. So, I mean, I think New Zealand were very unnecessarily stubborn through this series. They needed to be a little more flexible with their batting order. And the telling stat for me is the fact that they lost 29 wickets and they took only 16 wickets. So they clearly they struggled to bat out those 20 overs through the course of the series. And yeah, I think they have a lot to sort out before they play against Australia.
Yeah, on one hand, we almost kind of praise teams for sticking with the combination when the players are misfiring. But this was a case of nothing kind of showing signs. There are at times when one of those players show promise and you back them, but here was a completely, I mean, from the outside, you can say it was an opening combination that was not working at all. But add to the fact that it was Sophie Devine who was largely out of form, you can kind of understand that players do go out of form. They have a lean patch, etc. But one of the positives to emerge from this series, Amy Satterthwaite's batting. She is that central figure in the New Zealand batting. You talk about Amy Satterthwaite and the entire aura comes into picture. But here's a story that this number tells you, that she has just one T20I 50. Almost came close to scoring the second, but not to be in that second T20I. But then she clearly looked class apart from the others, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. I mean, her T20 record is actually very strange. I mean, to think of the success she's had for Melbourne Renegades in the WBBL, and when you look at that T20 record, just the highest of 71, 150, and she really looked like in that second T20I that she would go past that, because I think she was batting like a dream. She manipulated the field. She played the England bowlers exceptionally well and stitched together another very important partnership with Amelia Kerr. So I think she looked on song through the series, and yeah, I think with the bat, she was probably their only positive. Sophie Devine's form again. I think she's been very unlucky. She's middled a couple of balls. They've gone straight to fielders. And it's similar with Devine and Wyatt, where you're like, they just need one tiny bit of luck, and their form will probably turn around. And yeah, I think New Zealand in this series kind of showed how heavily they rely on Sophie Devine, Amy Satterthwaite, Susie Bates. And this series was probably a chance for them to maybe find someone else who they could rely on in the future, someone like a Maddie Green or an Amelia Kerr. But yeah, like you said, Satterthwaite was definitely their safety net. She has been their safety net for a long time now. So it was great to see her back in amongst the runs. She batted well in Australia as well. So it's nice to see that she's continuing that good form for them.
Right, and let's now from New Zealand's batting move on to England's bowling. 29 wickets, that number you mentioned in the three T20Is is too much. And let's take a glance at the top wicket takers this series. Top four have 5 wickets and all of them are English women. So tells a lot, doesn't it, Ananya?
Yeah, top four English players with 5 wickets, and then the next two are English players with 4 wickets. The only New Zealander there is Lee Kasparik. So clearly England were the dominant team. I think, like I mentioned through the ODI series, they had very, very good plans in place. They knew exactly how to attack each New Zealand batter, and it showed through the series, whether it was, the way Catherine Brunt attacked Jensen in the final T20I, where they were constantly, not providing her any width, attacking the stumps, forcing her to play in areas that she didn't want to play in. Sarah Glenn, Maddie Villiers, Sophie Eccleston, I think they've formed a very, very strong spin trio, especially in T20 cricket. They've given England an issue where, they have to now try and find place for Villiers, because every time she's gotten an opportunity, she has performed, she has gotten wickets. So, and even Freya Davis, I thought Freya Davis was actually very impressive through the series. She bowled only 7 overs but got 5 wickets. So I think, aside from that, showing how much ability Freya Davis has, it also shows how badly New Zealand played, because to lose 5 wickets in 7 overs against one bowler is probably not something you want to remember. But yeah, England, I think just they were better prepared. They executed a lot better. But I think Knight and Siver in that last game also used their bowlers very well. I think they got their matchups very right, and it was again very intelligent bowling. Sarah Glenn, Sophie Eccleston, all using the right variations at the right time. So England have a very strong bowling attack, and I think since 2019 December, with the addition of Glenn, they've really they have a very rounded attack now. It's not just pace heavy; they have a very, very good spin contingent as well.
Yeah, they have very good spin contingent. And to say that previewing the T20s, we were unsure of Maddie Villiers finding a place. I'm unsure if England would go with 3 spinners in 11. But let's kind of zoom into that Freya Davis talk. First over in the second ODI, she went for 11. And that's the match where she kind of registered her T20I best figures of 4 for 23. Yes, she had assistance in the conditions. There was swing available, but the discipline and the variations that stood out didn't right? Because you saw the cross seam delivery she bowled to get rid of a set Amy Satterthwaite on 49. So your thoughts on Freya Davis and the way she bowled?
Yeah, I think with Davies, she definitely doesn't have the same pace as Catherine Brunt, but I think she's, like you said, she showed great variation. She showed great control. And when I talk about variation, it's not just the off cutter, the cross seam delivery, or the different slower balls. I think she used angles very well, whether that was coming close to the stumps, around the stumps, whether it was bowling slightly wider of the stumps. I think she used angles very well. And that Satterthwaite dismissal that you mentioned, if you look at the previous ball, she was slightly slightly closer to the stumps, and the ball that got Satterthwaite, she was further away from the stumps, again cross-seam delivery, but angled it into her path. So I think it's just awareness, understanding of her own game. She has been, one of those pressure bowlers for Western Storm in the KSL. That Heather Knight has a lot of confidence in her, and she's learned a lot, obviously, through that KSL stint. And it's finally, she's waited a long time to get into that England setup, but she's it's reaping rewards.
She is indeed reaping her rewards. But the other player who was reaping the rewards of her hard work and was almost stubborn from leaving the crease was Tammy Beaumont. Let's talk about the Tammy series, as we can call this. Before that, let's kind of lay our eyes on the most runs graphic, because there she is, Tammy Beaumont at the top with 102 runs in just 3 T20Is. And we are kind of reviewing just the T20Is, so we'll talk about just these 3 games. But when we talk about Tammy Beaumont, hard to forget the ODIs that she had, almost becoming difficult to dislodge her for New Zealand, Ananya.
Yeah, I think this was the tour of Tammy. You can't call it anything else. She just came in the ODI series, was dismissed only once. I think she was, brilliant through that series, and it was great, I think, to see her be able to carry that form over into the T20Is. I think, she was definitely helped by the fact that Wyatt, Siva, Knight were able to score quickly around her. But I think the fact that, she was able to carry that form and continue playing the way she does play in T20Is was great to watch. And that second T20, if I remember correctly, England were kind of under a bit of pressure, losing Wyatt and Siva early. And she did anchor that chase. She put together a great partnership with Knight. And I think, like I said earlier, I think it was the way that she has handled swing through this tour that has really impressed me. Batting outside her crease, getting a big stride forward, and or playing the ball very late and kind of finding different angles to score. And I think that's why New Zealand just didn't know how to get rid of her. She was, like you said, very hard to dislodge. And uh, I think she was fantastic through this tour. Scoring around the ground. We associate a lot of sweep shots, ramp shots, reverse sweeps with Tammy Beaumont, but she also scored quite well down the ground. She drove very well, hit over mid wicket. So, you can see, I suppose, the fact that she's again carrying her form over to a format that she hasn't experienced too much success in, especially in recent times, having been moved around the order. It's great to see her back up at the top and doing well.
Tour of Tammy. That sounds so good to the ears. We have been naming these series after performers after performers. There was the Halliday season Tour of Tammy. I think we should agree it was a Tour of Tammy indeed. All right, what's next for New Zealand? The last point on this show, they play Australia at home, 3 T20Is followed by 3 ODIs. And then do you foresee any changes? Because nothing has quite gone right for New Zealand in this series. Only one ODI win that was, again, courtesy of good partnership, a big partnership between Amy Satterthwaite and Amelia Kerr. But do you foresee any changes, strategic or personal?
Well, I think we can predict a lot of things, but New Zealand seem to be very stubborn. And I think in some ways it's probably good that you're backing your players. But for me, I hope that New Zealand kind of switch that order around. They've got it really wrong, and I think that's something that they need to accept at some point because I think Hayley Jensen, the fact that she hasn't been scoring runs is probably also affecting her as a bowler. And we saw through that T20 World Cup, she is a very, very good bowler, very effective bowler for New Zealand. So I think, they need to kind of change that around, probably figure out how to get the best out of that batting unit. And, we don't know what the situation is with Leah Tahuhu, but if she does come back, then that's definitely a huge boost. But I think the bowlers have actually done a lot better than it looks like. Yes, they haven't gotten too many wickets, but I thought Rosemary Mayer, Jess Kerr, both bowled very well. Amelia Kerr has been consistent, of course, not getting as many wickets as we know her to, but I think that bowling unit is doing pretty well. Sophie Devine as well bowled quite well through the T20 series. So yeah, I think their major issue has been their batting, kind of getting the order right, getting the right personnel in. I don't think they'll switch their squad around too much. I think within the ODI and T20 team, those 15 to 17 players are probably the group that they're going to stick with. Of course, it would be nice to see someone like Holly Huddleston get back in. She has been, doing very well for Auckland Hearts. She has been very good for New Zealand as well. But again, their pace contingent looks pretty strong at the minute. If you add Leah Tahuhu back, she's probably not going to get in. But yeah, I don't see too many personnel changes for New Zealand.
Right, we'll find out in a bit because they are on a break for some days before they regather for the series against Australia. That is at the end of this month. 28th March is the first T20I. So that's curtains for England's tour of New Zealand 2021. But before we close the show, just a gentle reminder, 2 alarms if you have to set for tonight to this evening, the International Women's Day 2021, 5 p.m. Indian time. The issue 4 of the Women's Cricket Zone magazine is going to be out. Who's on the cover? Put your guessing hats on. We've had some tweets asking you the question. If you can get the right answer, there are goodies that might come your way. But who's on the cover? What stories are there? It'll all be revealed at 5 p.m. IST. And that's not all. It's International Women's Day, remember? So 8 p.m. Indian time, again, 8 p.m. Indian time, there's a special panel discussion as part of Women's Cricket Zone specials. 2 timings. Just set your alarm clock, set your reminder, set your memo, write it in your diary, but you do tune in for that. That's it from this edition of the Outside View Live. Ananya, any final thoughts? International Women's Day. You can your final thoughts before we call it off.
Well, my final thoughts would be: please read the magazine, please give us feedback, and please download it. And happy International Women's Day, everyone. Celebrate the women around you. They deserve your attention. They deserve your love and all your support.
Fair point. Nothing more to add. See you next time. Remember, tomorrow on the Outside View Live, we'll be analyzing and building up to the second India versus South Africa ODI as well. So lots coming up your way. Do tune in. See you the next time.